How should I respond when someone attacks me as being woke or tries to dismiss their sexist or racist joke as just a joke? This is something a lot of people are grappling with at the moment, and I've got to be frank, it's bad at both ends of the extreme political spectrum. There are a lot of people out there quick to attack and cancel and dismiss other people if they don't agree with their worldview. And rather than get into conversation and try to find nuance or some common ground, people just use these terms like woke or racist as a way of dismissing and shutting down conversation. So, what can we do here? The answer is to not enter the lowbrow Olympics, and unfortunately, that's often what people are after. They're almost wanting you to react explosively and defensively, which is really bloody easy when you're triggered, to prove their point so they can go, haha, see, I knew that you were going to be a precious snowflake here, or whatever it might be. So, how can you respond in a more regulated way that is also more effective? Maybe you won't get the other person to see your view, but it just makes them stop and think. It maybe holds them accountable for what they have said. So, very first tip, you need to pause. Because if you just react, it's probably not going to look good. And that pause can be as simple as saying, hang on a sec. And it just allows you to gather your thoughts. So hang on a sec. Point number 2, one of my favorites, get curious, not furious. So if someone says, oh, you're just woke, ask them. So I'm curious, when you say that I'm being woke and clearly you mean it as an insult, what do you actually mean there? Because here's the thing, we turn words around to mean something that they don't necessarily mean. So do it genuinely. Like, what do you actually mean when you say that? In the case of a sexist or racist joke, one of my favorite tips here is still with that curiosity, and it's to say to the other person, so clearly I've missed something here. Can you help me understand? How is that funny? Or, okay, so you say that's a joke. Can you explain to me what makes it a joke? Now, what often happens here is that rather than double down, when you actually hold the person accountable and say, cool, so, I love jokes, help me understand where that one's funny, the person will say, oh, never mind, or whatever, because they know what they said was out of line. Sometimes, though, they will double down and they'll say, oh, well, it's just a joke. It's a joke for these reasons. Can't you see that? So the third step is to offer a different perspective. If we go back to our woke example, it might be listening to their explanation of what it means to them and then perhaps saying something like, okay, so that's really interesting that it means that to you, because according to the dictionary definitions, woke simply means being alert to and aware of injustice and social issues, particularly around things like racism and inequality. So I don't know about you, but if you're calling me woke and that's what it means to me, then thank you. So it might be offering that different perspective. These words can get weaponized so quickly. In the case of the poor taste joke, it might be saying, okay, so I appreciate you intended it as a joke. However, my take on it, coming from my experience or this perspective, is a bit different. Or it might be saying, so putting the joke aside for a sec, what is the point you're trying to make with that? So offer that counter perspective. Again, what you're doing, you're not attacking the other person. You're not going straight to blame and shame. You are you're holding them accountable for what they've said and, genuinely trying to get to the heart of it. And again, if it's someone lobbing a bomb and deliberately trying to be antagonistic, when you actually hold them accountable calmly, they won't like it and they'll usually exit the conversation quicker than you will. The final point, though, is being able to exit with grace because, as I've spoken about before, some people just like to attack. Some people like to play the person, not the ball. They want to attack the person. They want to be disrespectful. So in that case, it might be saying, you know what, clearly we've got very different worldviews. Let's agree to disagree on this one. You've got to protect your energy, your boundaries, and your time. But I hope those help, whether it's at work, whether it's at the dinner table, whether it's with friends that you love dearly, but you've got different worldviews. How can we stand up for ourselves? How can we counter some of this stuff, but in an effective way? I hope that helps. Have a shot. Let me know how you go. And if you have a communication, leadership, self-management, tricky people stuff question you'd like answered, send it through and I'll do my best to answer it for you next week. Cheers.